Alright, so we're back. The live stream's on. Great. So before our short break, we had an overview of the digital engagement domain presented by Rogan Sage. Next, we've got two speakers who look at various aspects of digital engagement. Rogan Sage, one of our students at Bournemouth University, looked at Glastonbury Festival and social impact of Glastonbury Festival as evidenced by Twitter postings. And Mr. Bello, PhD candidate at the University of Bedfordshire, looks at social media in a B2B context, Virgin Media's online engagement. So over to Rogan.
Thank you. Okay, just to introduce myself, I'm Rogan, obviously a student at Bournemouth University, well, just about to graduate now from Events and Leisure Marketing. I did my dissertation as part of the Festin project with Nigel and a few of the other students. My topic was to explore the social impact of events on social media communities, so through like Twitter and Facebook and things like that. For my example, I used Twitter because you can get all the information off of there quite easily and analyse it, and there's a wealth of data around events. The reason I looked into this is because social impact of events is becoming more popular to be for people to research at the moment. But there are boundaries to it, such as it's quite hard to get a wealth of information, which is why Twitter is a great way to do that. It can also be expensive and stuff, but again, Twitter takes the cost away. So yeah, it was all about Twitter really, and about the impact that events can have through the Twitter domain. There is online social revolution going on with the birth of social media such as Facebook and Twitter, as it says. It creates communities without clear geographical locations, so people from all over the world can be interacting with each other in a community which doesn't have a locational boundary, which in history it always would have done. This makes it important to see for event organisers if their impacts can extend to people not in just the host community. A lot of the research in journals, you'll find that they're only talking about the community around the actual event and the people that attend. So we needed to be aware when doing the research that people from all around the world could be affected by the events. So as we see the diagram there, you've got the event consumers and the local community, but there's also the wider community, which is represented in this case by the Twitter users. Okay, so where do these people sit as stakeholders of the events? They're generally quite low power, but can have an impact on the way people view the event, the branding of the event, and the way people interact with the event when they're there as well. And they're quite high interest because they're taking time out of their own personal life to tweet and talk about something that they may not even be attending. Okay, so why is this important? Because research has shown, and a lot of people agree, that Twitter and things like that can have big impacts on people's views of brands, people's views of events, and for example, there's lots of PR disasters, such as the BP oil spill, and that was a pretty big thing anyway, but it was exacerbated by the fact that it was on Twitter and everyone was talking about it straight away, it trended, and it became an even bigger PR disaster than it would have been, say, 30 years ago without social media. So at the moment there's no real research into how microbloggers can affect events on an online field. Okay, so what I wanted to do with my research is basically assess the propensity for these people to have an impact on events and to be impacted by events. Okay, so a little bit background on the Twitter and microblogging. Yeah, as I said before, there's limited academic knowledge of how this interaction works, so how events interact with online social media. And how this can possibly be used as a catalyst for social change. So, for example, if an event has a social objective, such as decreasing prejudice or something like that, and something that they do within their event. So, like, for example, Glastonbury, which is the example that I used for my study, they have quite a high social conscience, So for them, it's quite interesting for them to have social change across social media platform, and that could be something that would help them with their objectives. So my aims and objectives with the study was to develop an understanding of the social impact of festivals on online social media communities and networks. And then I used these objectives to do that. So as you can see with Glastonbury, they've got quite a conscience. They've stimulated youth culture. This is their objective that they had from since they started. Work is green, support religious expression, environmental, social and moral issues, and supporting Greenpeace, Oxfam and Water. So for them it's quite important the impact that social media and Twitter conversations can have on the way they're seen and the impact that they can have through them. Okay, so the way I did my research was through mixed methods. So I got all of the tweets that had the hashtags Glasgow, Glastonbury, hashtags on anything around that all together, and went through them to create groups. Basically, that's a group where someone will be starting a conversation, and then people around it interacting with them will become part of what we would call a social network within a social network. Okay, then after doing that, I ran a content analysis to see what those people were talking about, whether it was relevant, whether it was having any impact on the wider community at all. And I'll show you what I found. There was a very low amount of interaction based around the social prerogatives of Glastonbury Music Festival around the hashtags. So people weren't really discussing any of the social change, any of the issues that were coming through that. So I was looking into what factors would influence to give more change. There were a few examples of things that were used. For example, Alt-J supported a campaign called Save the Arctic, which was one of the tents at the festival. They basically they tweeted, Glastonbury tweeted, but the public didn't adopt that conversation, didn't spread that, and therefore didn't spread social change through social media. So generally I found that interactions for Twitter for events isn't as important for social change as you would have thought, as the literature suggests. So from here on, just being like one study, just one case study on it, it was obviously Glastonbury being a prime example of that, so it's quite supportive. But in the future, I think more research needs to be done into this field to see whether there is a real relation between using social media for social change as an event organiser. And yeah, that's that. Okay.
Now we hear a lot about social media influencing or encouraging social change, the so-called Twitter revolutions, hashtag activism, all these sort of things. And Rogan's presented something that's counter to those established ideas or practices. So I'm guessing there'll be a couple of questions around that. Questions?
Why would you expect social issues to come up out of Glastonbury?
Because they have a social objective as a one.
They do, but the audience.
Yeah.
Why would you expect the people who would be twittering, who have got nothing to do with Glastonbury's own objectives, to actually be raising social issues rather than saying, I'm a bit drunk, can you see me on the telly?
Yeah, it's always been related. Glastonbury Festival has always been related to things like green and environmental and social issues, and that's something that they try and project through their Twitter account. They did tweet around those topics, but it just wasn't adopted by the public. As you say, why would I expect that? But if they're tweeting from their account, which is followed by millions of people, why are people not realising that conversation is coming up on their Twitter feed and joining in? It's not having the impact that they would like to have through social media.
So Glastonbury are twittering,
yeah,
and they're twittering to the people in the audience.
Yeah, but
they aren't taking
the
it up. Why would you expect other than that?
Well, I just think if the issue's raised in your domain, in your Twitter feed that you've, obviously everyone's Twitter feed is customised to the stuff that they are interested in and want to talk about.
Yeah.
Obviously if Glastonbury's tweeting about that, are they having an impact? And as you say, they're not at all. They're making very small ripples.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting finding, actually. Because this is a major part of the brand proposition,
Yeah.
and that's not something that the audience is engaging with.
Yeah, they don't.
It's today's about.
I think most people would agree that that its prerogatives in the social sphere are a good thing and support that, but maybe not actively. There's no real active support of what they believe in, which is something that's quite poignant really for people to have that in their CSR, to be like supporting the community and doing things that have a strong moral basis, but then people aren't engaging with that.
So is it different now than it was in the past? Because I grew up around the era of Woodstock, and if you like, the movements in Los Angeles, and with flower power.
Yeah.
Is it the current audience is different than?
I'm not sure. I think that would be a study that would have to be moved on from the one that I've done here and sort of explore that. But yeah, as I say, like, why would you expect that? But equally, it's quite interesting that they don't adopt that conversation as well.
Yeah.
Is there any evidence to show that people would engage in more social issues on Twitter, pre-event and post-event, but actually during the event they're talking about the bands?
Right. Yeah. The sample that I used was from the 4 days leading up to Glastonbury and the 4 days afterwards. So yeah, as you say, the conversation, there was a lot of conversation around bands. That was the main topic areas in both groups. And yeah, they didn't adopt the conversation, but maybe over longer periods of time, I think maybe standing back from that and not experiencing it, standing back and seeing Glastonbury for what it is from an objective view, they might be more interested in the social issues of that. So maybe again, a further study with a full year of tweets. But obviously again, that would be a gigantic amount of tweets, so it'd be a lot of work.
Well, I actually monitor the Glastonbury feed because it doesn't really go away. You know, some events you have a surge of traffic and then it goes away. Glastonbury and Edinburgh Fringe Festival generate traffic all the time. And there's very little evidence of social issues being discussed in any form. You get a couple of news items bubbling through, but it's mostly musical bands. All the conversation is bands, music. And who's playing, who's not playing. You're more likely to see a performance of Simple Minds from 1983 than you are to see anything from regarding social change.
Any more questions?
Do you get any idea of the demographics of the audience?
Generally, it wasn't. There was like locational stuff, the data that came through with the tweets, but it wasn't really. Because you don't give up that much information on Twitter that comes with your profile. I mean, you can obviously find out a lot about people from their Twitter profile, but you need to go into such detail. With the amount of tweets that we had, it would have been pointless to even start. To be honest, I'd still be doing it in 5 years' time. Any other questions?